Heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. You don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the her beauty and the moonlight overthrew ya. Well, she tied you to her kitchen chair, she broke your throne and cut your hair, and from your lips she drew hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked the floor. Used to live alone before I knew ya. But I've seen your flag on the marble arch. Our love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah, hallelujah.
It is our honor to stand before you today, but also the hardest thing we've had to do to stand here in front of you and talk about someone we love so much. Jill will proceed now to give a history of Kyle's life, and she has allergies, so that's a warning.
Kyle was born in Mannville, January 5th, 1979, and even though it was early January, there had already been 3 babies in Mannville, which is surprising. Ryan and I were at our grandparents'. We shared the farm with them, and when they came home, Ryan was very disappointed that his name wasn't Ian. He liked the name Ian. My mom took leave work while we were all the 3 of us to look after the 3 of us. And Kyle was an early walker, very busy, mischievous from the start. My parents can attest to that, as well as any bus drivers or teachers or coaches, right, Barry? Kyle helped on the farm. We had sheep, and we were part of the Vermilion 4-H club. My parents found out later that Kyle would like to rile up the sheep, because we always had the worst behaved sheep at the sheep show, and they found out later that was because Kyle used to rile them up at the farm. After our mom started back to work, my Grandma Calder and Grandpa Calder looked after us. Kyle had a very special bond with Grandma. We enjoyed our summers because our grandparents lived in the same yard, so all the cousins would come to visit them, and then we would play with them, so with the cats and ride the horses, jump on the bales, and apparently torment the sheep. Nicknames are really important to Kyle. If you had one, it meant you were part of his team. Thank you to those that did write a nickname down. I was Jilly Bean, which went into Bean to Bean Brain, anything like that. Ryan was Chowder. My dad was Waldo. My mom was Mama Bear. Yeah, lots of people had nicknames. Kyle started hockey early, And shots against the garage, shinny on the slough, shots in the kitchen, too. Hockey was different back then. There was no spring hockey, there was no dryland training, there were no special equipment. Kyle started to stand out a little bit, maybe when he was in Pee Wee. He got selected to play on a Northern Alberta team, went to Minnesota. And then later he got asked to play for the Midgets when they were in their provincial tournament in Castor. They ended up winning that tournament. If there's anybody here that was on that team or in the stands for that victory, can you yell, "Go, Mannville, go"? Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. I thought that was the pinnacle of Kyle's hockey career. I thought if you made it to the Midgets from being a Pee-wee, I don't know what else you could do from there. When he was in grade 10, he got sick with mono, and he was actually in the hospital. There was a tryout for a kind of a tournament that meant to be like where the WHL scouts would come to look. And he was 115 pounds. He had an IV. The doctor said he could go to the tryout. And he went to the registration desk and they took one look at him and said, "No, you're not skating." So he didn't get to do that. He was pretty disappointed, but he did get noticed and was later drafted by the Regina Pats. He left Mannville in grade 11 to go play in Leduc for Bantam in Leduc. He then spent 3.5 years in Regina and then finished his junior career in Kamloops. He was honored to play for Team Canada in the World Juniors in Winnipeg. In his professional hockey career, he played for 5 NHL teams, the Swedish Elite Team, the KHL in Kazakhstan, the American Hockey League, and that was kind of over 13 years. He was also honored to play for Canada again for the Men's World Championships, and they won gold in Finland, which is a pretty big milestone on his records. He was remembered for being tenacious, not afraid to do the dirty work in the corners, and providing some comic relief. One thing my husband Chris said that stood out about Kyle was he never said anything bad about his teammates. He was always part of his team. You were in his good books. Once he was done playing, he focused on raising his kids before they all started playing hockey. He was fortunate to coach for the Junior Kings when he was living in LA, and then for the Chicago Reapers until just this last year. He had 1 year left on his contract, and then he and Lindsay were going to travel across the country to see the kids. We heard from many families telling stories about how Kyle impacted their child's hockey experience and then also then their lives. He was a coach that was highly respected, and the kids wanted to play hard for him. In Chicago, the owner of the Reapers that he coached for, Steve Dry, talked about their daily calls and how Kyle was not only a coach, but a true teammate with his teams. One dad told me a story about how his daughter was going to quit hockey, but Kyle talked to her into staying. She ended up coming back to hockey and now is playing for Shattuck St. Mary's and is considered one of the top female players in the US for her age. And her dad said that was a lot to do with Kyle. Kyle's number one fans were always my parents. He always made time for them because they were very important to him. They put on thousands of miles driving to Regina or following the Pats on their road trips. Before the internet, they used to call the Regina radio station and have them put the phone up on hold so they could hear the games. That's how they would listen to the games. They thought nothing of jumping on a plane to go watch Kyle play in a city they hadn't been to before. They loved being part of his adventures. My dad was often part of Kyle's cross-country trips and loved every minute of it. Kyle was so busy, I think my dad enjoyed that time, just the two of them sharing stories. So many stories. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. Losing him will leave a huge hole in their hearts. Thanks to Kyle, my parents have strong relationships with his kids and will feel his presence in them. I can speak on behalf of my parents to say that they've appreciated everyone who's reached out, offered support, or just let them know they're there for them. The thing that was really important to him was his family and his friends. He loved his kids more than anything. He met Alicia while he was playing in Regina, and they had 3 amazing kids. Caden and Madison were born in Chicago. Riker was born in LA. I remember going to the games with the kids with their Calder jerseys. Kyle and the family lived in seven American cities, went through the NHL lockout, lived in Sweden, moved back to Saskatoon in the summers, rented houses, bought houses, moved countless times while he was playing hockey. Some would complain about that, but Kyle took that all in stride. It was never a burden. Nothing seemed too complicated to achieve. He never took his hockey opportunity for granted. He met Lindsay, who had a son, CJ, that Kyle thought was the smartest kid he'd ever met. And he went on to raise him as his own. Lindsay and Kyle had Rylan, otherwise known as Rai or just Rai. They spent 6 years in Orange, which is outside of Anaheim. They had a great house with a backyard pool. Lindsay's twin sisters and their families still live in that house. They moved to LA in 2019 so the kids could be closer to school and hockey. In 2020, during COVID, they were all at home. I'm sure Kyle would look back at that time very fondly. His favorite times were when they were all together. In 2022, they moved to Chicago. He wanted a better hockey experience for Caden, CJ, and Rai. Kyle got a job with the Reapers, and the boys all played for that organization. Kyle got to coach them. At the memorial in Chicago, one of the speakers said if you wanted to know Kyle's spirit, you just needed to spend some time with his kids. And that really resonated with me. Caden, you have his generous soul. Madison, you have his storytelling ability. CJ, his commitment to hockey. Riker, his quick wit. Rylan, his hockey sense. You guys all have a big heart, and you love tricks, and you love having a good time. He loved you all immensely and would never have wanted to see you suffer the way you've been these last 2 months. He always wanted what was best for you and would have sacrificed anything to put you ahead. I remember we would go to restaurants and he'd be like, "Nope, I don't eat, the kids eat first." And he just would eat the scraps, but he wanted you guys to have everything you wanted. He and Lindsay had a very special bond. She understood him, and he was so lucky to have her. You went along with his crazy adventures. He adored you. You could always tell how much Kyle liked someone by how much they teased them. He teased Lindsay a lot. He wouldn't have wanted this for you either. You've been so strong through all this, keeping everything that's important at the forefront. And Kyle would have loved to heard the story about how Lindsay got here today. She was supposed to fly from Chicago, flight got delayed, pushed, delayed. They landed in Calgary at 5:30 this morning. My friend Kelly drove them here. They got to the house at, I think, 20 after 1, and they were here at 2. So that would be, Kyle would love that. He would have loved all that. Yeah, that's anything that could have been achieved, he would make it happen. Kyle made huge efforts to come to Canada to see us or attend reunions. This past Christmas, everyone was to come to Calgary, and we were going to drive on to Revelstoke. He couldn't come for a couple days, so we all took off to Revelstoke, and then he was supposed to come and drive to Revelstoke, but his flight got canceled at 6 a.m. He called me and said, "Well, I'm jumping in the car, I'll see you in 18 hours. Which didn't surprise me for a second, but then found out he was teasing me, which didn't surprise me either. And he got another flight, got to Revelstoke, skied the next day, and then the next day we drove back to Calgary. So he did all that effort just to come and spend some time with us. We called ourselves the Grizz Calders from the Griswolds, and that was because usually things were crazy. Yeah. Yeah, we did have some fun times. It was always hard to get together with everybody in different areas with hockey and work and school. But we went skiing in Sun Peaks in 2012. We all came to the farm in 2014. That's when Dad put the tractor in the slough. It's memorable. The picture on the program is that day. Yeah, we celebrated our parents' 50th in Mannville in 2016. We went on an Alaskan cruise in 2017. For Kyle's 40th, we all went down to Orange, got together at Sylvan Lake. And then last year we went on a cruise in Italy for my dad's 80th. That was a pretty special time. We were going to try to recreate it again here in July for my mom's 80th, but that's put on hold. Kyle was always devoted and proud of his upbringing in Mannville. We look around at everybody here today, a small community. My nephew said, I think everybody in Mannville is here. Not quite, but it is. You look around and we're all, as a community, we get together to celebrate, but we also get together to grieve. So thank you all for coming today. One of his teammates from the Blackhawks told a story about how when they would go out after games, they'd go to some restaurant in whatever city they were in, and Kyle would often be the one that was loud at the table, and he would ask the servers, well, where are you from? And they would say wherever they were from, and he'd puff his chest out, I'm from Mannville, Alberta. Yeah, he was a proud Canadian and also proud to be raised on a farm. On the way home from a Regina Pats game, Dave Gamercy and my dad had an idea to start a charity golf tournament, and they enlisted a few other generous souls from Mannville to help put it together. They ran the Kyle Calder charity golf tournament for 10 years, raising about $250,000 for local charities or local families. Kyle would invite players he met along the way. It was cool to see all the NHL players from around Alberta descend on Mannville. Shenanigans usually ensued, right, Freddie? I think Kyle liked that opportunity, though, to give back. He leaves behind a lot of connections. Reading the comments on social media left me in awe of his ability to keep up with those connections. When I was with him, he was often on the phone, and I could hear one side, but it always sounded like he was talking to his best friend. But the thing was, there was different people all the time. He treated you like you were his best friend. I think he had a lot of best friends. And it just, like, his ability to connect with people is something that definitely stands out for me.
Kyle wasn't just our brother, he was our friend, our teammate in life, and someone we could always count on. Growing up together, we shared everything: adventures, beating Jill up, he and Jill trying to beat me up, laughter, and memories that'll stay with us forever. Like most siblings, there was never a doubt about the loyalty between us. What I will remember most about Kyle was the way he made people feel. I can't describe it, but God can, and it was good. He had a way of showing up when things mattered. He could make you laugh when life felt heavy. He could make an ordinary day feel that much brighter. He's probably the reason there's 19 rows of seats in this community center. His kindness wasn't loud or attention-seeking. It was genuine, steady, and came from the heart. He had a strength about him that people admired. He faced challenges with determination and usually got what he wanted, like making the WHL, making World Junior Team, getting drafted to the NHL, playing on Hockey Night in Canada. He cared deeply about his family and his friends, and he never hesitated to give his time, his help, or his support to someone in need. As his siblings, we were lucky enough to know him in all of his roles: son, friend, family member, and the person he was when no one else was looking. Behind everything was a good man, a man with a generous heart, a quick smile, and a love for the people that mattered to him. Today, while we grieve his loss, I hope we celebrate the incredible gift of having Kyle in our life. The memories he leaves behind us are countless, and the impact he had on each of us will continue long after today. Like I said to those in Chicago, I encourage you to share stories with someone you've never met before. just like Kyle would have. Kyle, I wish you had 100 more times to beat me in, no, I wish you had 100 more times to try to beat me in golf. But in return, I would let you beat me at ping pong anytime you wanted. I only found out last month he was all in that sport. I wish there were more chances to laugh with you and tell you how much you meant to me and to hear your unbelievable tales. But if love could have kept you here, you would have been here for a very long time. Thank you for being my brother. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the crazy stories and the love. You will always be a part of us. And we will carry you for the rest of our lives in our heart. Rest easy, Kyle. You were deeply loved, and you will be deeply missed. I have allergies. I have allergies too.
A few people are going to speak now. The first person I'd like to ask to the stage is Kyle's firstborn, Caden. He was the first grandchild. He brought so much light into our lives. I remember never having felt this love in my heart when I first met you. And I know Kyle had that 100%. Caden lives in Boulder, attends the University of Colorado. He was born when Kyle went to play in Sweden, so lived in Sweden for that year. Kyle coached him. He has the ability to connect with people. He probably has similar kind of connections that Kyle did. He loved you very much.
Like my aunt and uncle, I also have allergies. I'm also running the Calder family. So don't make fun of me if I trip up on my words. To many people, Kyle Charles Calder was known as an NHL player. However, to us, he was simply Dad, or sometimes Big Smoke, Big Guy, Grease Ball, Chucky, Big Critter, Big Wiener, Daddy-O, Beast, Turbo, Juggy, Kyle the Hammer, Calt, and Coach Calder. He was our biggest supporter, greatest fan, teacher, storyteller, and the heart of our family. His hockey career was something we were incredibly proud of, but it was never what defined him to us. What defined him was the way he loved us with his whole heart. Kyle grew up here in a small farming town, Mannville. No matter where life took him, he remained proudly Canadian and always stayed true to his roots. Yet he also embraced the country his family called home. Leave it to Kyle to be the only person driving in our 4th of July parade with an American flag proudly flying from the front and a Canadian flag waving from the back. It was the perfect picture of who he was, proud of where he came from, grateful for where life had taken him, and always able to make people smile. His journey to the NHL was one of perseverance, determination, relentless hard work. He wasn't the biggest or the most likely to make it, but he earned every opportunity by being one of the hardest workers on the ice. His life showed that with grit, dedication, and heart, even the longest odds can be overcome. Kyle loved his children to the moon and back. He was the proud father to his 4 sons, Caden, CJ, Raker, Rylan, and his 1 daughter, Madison, each of whom he brought endless joy and purpose. He was incredibly proud of his daughter and cherished the special bond they shared. His children were the greatest accomplishment, and there was nothing in this world he loved more than being their dad. After retiring from professional hockey, one of Kyle's greatest joys was giving back to the game that had given him so much. He became a youth hockey coach, but more than that, he absolutely loved coaching his 4 boys. He treasured every practice, every game, every tournament, every long weekend at the rink. Watching them grow, encouraging them, Celebrating their successes and helping them through disappointments brought him immeasurable joy. Through hockey, he taught not only the game but also perseverance, teamwork, humility, and the value of hard work. Those years spent behind the bench with his boys were some of the happiest of his life. Kyle was generous beyond measure, the kind of man who would truly give you the shirt off his back. Beneath his tough exterior was a giant teddy bear with an incredibly loving heart. He was fiercely loyal to the people he loved and the kind of friend you could always count on. He also had an unmatched sense of humor. Kyle loved to chirp everyone, and if you knew him, knew you had to be ready, especially to be called a donkey. His quick wit kept everyone laughing, and he always had the perfect comeback. He had a nickname for just about everyone in the family, and his stories were legendary, larger than life, hilarious, and unforgettable. Whether they made you laugh until you cried or shake your head in disbelief, they were uniquely Kyle. Kyle and Lindsay built a beautiful, beautiful life centered around family. From motorhome adventures across the US and Canada to countless sports weekends, Super Bowl parties, family vacation, endless theme parks, and cruises around the world, they filled every season of life with memories. No matter where they traveled, what mattered most to Kyle was simply being together. Being surrounded by his family was his greatest joy, and the life they built was his proudest accomplishment. While he wasn't the most outwardly religious man, he found comfort in prayer during both life's greatest challenges and its greatest blessings. He faced life with strength, gratitude, and hope. Kyle's time with us was far, far too short, but the life he lived was incredibly full. He lives behind a legacy of love, resilience, generosity, laughter, and unwavering devotion to his family. Though we miss him beyond measure, we find comfort in the countless memories he gave us and the example he set for all who knew him. Our promise is very simple. We will carry him with us every day, honor the life he lived, always strive to make him proud. We will always love him, just as he loved us, to the moon and back. Kyle, Dad, thank you for every lesson, every laugh, every sacrifice, every story, every nickname, every hockey game, every bye now, and every hug. Thank you for showing us what hard work, loyalty, and unconditional love looked like. We hope you know how deeply you were loved and how proud we are to be your family and how much you will always be a part of us. Until we meet again, we love you. I love you, Dad.
And to change the tone a little, just share a little story that one of Kyle's former players mentioned to me. Radis Ivanas, they played together 2 years in Los Angeles, and at this stage in life, Ivanas was also coaching in Chicago for the past couple years, coaching for a team called the Storm, and their boys were the same age. And Ivanas said to me that every game after the game, shaking hands, Kyle would reach out when they're on the ice and give him the tickly finger when they shook hands, and every time he fell for that. But next, I'd like to bring up and introduce Troy, cousin and also best friend. They played minor hockey together here in Mannville. They spent lots of hours wrestling in the basements of our house and his house, and they were in each other's wedding party. Very good friends, and Troy would often travel down and watch Kyle play many, many times. Coincidentally, both Kyle and Troy's sons were playing in Toronto last summer. Rylan playing hockey and Jake playing ball hockey, so they got to connect there. And Kyle appreciated you very much, Troy. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today to remember my cousin and one of my best friends, Kyle. To grow up with Kyle was a real gift. We spent our youngest days running around together in Mannville and around the farm. And right from the start, Kyle was the center of everything. He had a huge energy and he was deeply loyal. We all watched him play hockey with so much grit, and the whole hockey world respected him for how hard he played on the ice. But behind that tough competitor was a man with a massive gentle heart. There are so many memories I could share today, but I picked these stories because to me, they show exactly what kind of family man he was and what true friendship meant to him. Kyle always lived by one simple rule, and that was family over everything. Just last year, Kyle, Rylan, Jake, and I managed to meet up in Toronto. Rylan and Kyle were there for a hockey tournament, while Jake and I were there for ball hockey nationals. We went to watch Rylan's first game, and in true Kyle style, he packed 10 people into a 7-seat van just to make sure everyone was included. Now, you have to understand, this van wasn't even his. It belonged to another dad on the team, and at that point, this poor family had absolutely no clue who Jake and I even were. But Kyle didn't care. If you were family, you were coming along. Before the game started, Kyle came out of the dressing room and asked Jake to come help him. I went and walked around the rink, and when I came back, I looked over at the bench, and there was Jake. Standing right next to Kyle. Kyle had made Jake the official doorman for the team, just so Jake could be right there close to Rylan and the boys. Jake could not stop smiling for the rest of the weekend. He was so happy to be part of the team, and he loved learning from Uncle Kyle. That was just who Kyle was. He never wanted you to just watch. He always brought you into the action and made you feel important.
That's Jill's.
Too bad. He brought the same big energy to our personal lives, especially through his phone calls. Kyle loved to call late at night, and did not matter what city he was in or how early he had to skate or coach the next day. When Kyle wanted to talk, he called. My phone would buzz at 2 a.m, and I would see his name, like many of us have experienced in this room. It was never a short check-in. It was always full of great stories, loud laughs, and deep talks about life. But no matter how long we talked or how late it got, every single call ended the exact same way. We always spent the last few minutes talking about our families and the people who meant the most to us. And right before we hung up, without fail, we always said, "I love you, man." He never missed a chance to make sure we knew how much he cared. I would give anything to see my phone light up tonight, just to hear those words one more time. I want to say a huge thank you to the crew from our area who made the trip down to Chicago to pay our respects. I have a feeling Kyle was looking down on us, smiling and laughing, knowing he would have been right in the middle of all of it. To Lindsay, Caden, Madison, Riker, Rylan, CJ, and the Calder family, we miss him, we love him, and his stories will be told forever. Rest easy, Kyle. Love you.
The next speaker is someone who just coached Kyle for 1 year while he was in Mannville, but they made a special connection, Barry Symington. The Symingtons visited Kyle in LA, and Kyle took them on a tour of the King's dressing room. That's kind of a good memory. I don't know if I can bring that up, but Kyle considered you a really good friend and mentor, especially when he started coaching. My dad told a story about him being interviewed at something about your coach from when you were young, and he brought you up. So yeah, made an impact for sure.
Hello, folks. First thing I'd like to say is thanks to the family for letting me speak. Next, I would like to take a word and just thank everybody that made the trip to Mannville and to support the family. My story with Kyle began in 1993 when we had just moved back to Mannville and I was getting my welding truck set up. I was a regular at our local Bumper to Bumper where I met Kyle's dad, Bill. We quickly discovered a shared love of hockey and spent a lot of time talking about the game, even though he is a Canadiens fan. One day, Bill suggested I help coach the local midget team with Dave Summers. I thought it sounded like a great way to get involved in the hockey community, so I showed up for the first practice. To my surprise, Dave introduced me to the team as their new head coach. Bill, did you know that? Kyle, or Chucky as I came to know him, was playing on that team as a second-year Bantam. I don't remember his exact words, but I do remember him chirping me right away about coaching. It was something like, "So you think you're going to coach us, eh?" That was Kyle, confident, competitive, and always ready with a grin. He was the best player on the team. Sorry, Pope. But one game, our goalie, Jamie, couldn't play, and we had no backup. Kyle decided he'd put on the pads and give goaltending a try. After the game, he gave us a full play-by-play of all his spectacular saves and how well he thought he played. The only problem is we lost 12-1. That season, it had its up and down, but even more laughs. Bill was our team manager and kept everything running smoothly during Kyle's final season of Mannville minor hockey. Go Hawks! From there, Kyle went on to put up points everywhere he played. He was drafted 89th overall by the Regina Pats of the WHL. That summer, he asked Lisa to help him out with a workout program. He said he needed to improve his flexibility because he couldn't even touch his toes. Like everything Kyle took on, he attacked her with hard work and determination. Before long, he was touching his toes with no problem. Few of us became familiar with Kyle's famous 3 a.m. I was 3, you were 2, eh?
Yeah.
He'd often ask me why I was so convinced he was going to make the show. My answer was always the same. Because of your work ethic, your determination, your commitment to giving 110% every single shift. Kyle had the talent, but it was his attitude that truly set him apart. In '99, he earned a spot representing Canada at the World Junior Championship, a huge milestone in his career. When he called to tell me, I could hear the excitement and the pride in his voice. I couldn't have been happier for him because I knew exactly how much work had gone into getting there. Another unforgettable day came when he was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks in the 5th round. Everything he had worked for was becoming reality. He spent 6 seasons in Chicago, played on the famous ABC line, wore an A on his jersey, and added countless highlights to an already impressive career. Stops in Philly, Detroit, LA, Anaheim followed before he officially retired. Well, not really. Kyle stayed involved in hockey through coaching and mentoring because the game was always part of who he was. But stepping away from playing gave him something even more important, more time with his family. He absolutely loved you folks. In later years, our conversations often centered around what his kids were doing. The pride in his voice was unmistakable. Of course, we would still relive the old hockey stories, and somehow he'd always have me laughing with another one of his adventures or antics. In '09, our family took a trip to Disneyland and had the opportunity to watch Kyle play at the Staples Center. After the game, he gave the boys, sorry girls, you weren't allowed. Love it. A tour of this dressing room. Sorry. Yeah, a tour of the dressing room. The next day, Ryan and I were picked up in a limousine to watch Kyle practice in Anaheim. We got to sit on the bench and experience an NHL practice up close. It was something Ryan and I will never forget. Despite his busy schedule, Kyle made time for us, and that meant the world to us. A few years ago, Kyle brought some of his buddies from California to Mannville for a hunting trip. Naturally, a hockey game broke out. Didn't take me long to realize just how good these NHL players really are when you're trying to keep up with them. I definitely wasn't. That evening ended up at the Mannville Hotel where I had the chance to get to know one of Kyle's friends, Tim. A couple of months later, I ended up in California working for him. I stayed with Kyle, who handed me the keys to his truck, along with a hand-drawn map to the job site. 5 minutes later, I was on the phone because I was completely lost. Kyle patiently got me back on track after I'd managed to drive an extra 15 miles. I'm sure he was just shaking his head. For Kyle, navigating California traffic was just another ordinary day. As life went on, we sometimes wouldn't talk for months, but whenever one of us picked up the phone, it was like we had spoken the day before. That's kind of friendship that's rare and one I'll always be grateful for. I think it's these flowers. What started as an ordinary conversation with Bill that bumper to bumper became a coach-player relationship with Kyle, and eventually a lifelong friendship with him and his family. I feel incredibly fortunate to have shared so much of life's journey with Chucky. I'll always treasure the memories, the laughs, and especially those unexpected early morning phone calls. Rest easy, Chucky. You'll be deeply missed but never forgotten.
To this day, people still ask me, how did he do it? How did your brother make it? There's parents that have children that want their kids to succeed, play in the NHL. They know, what did you do? So here's the secret sauce. Was it the mini sticks playing with golf balls in the kitchen at age 2? Taking shots outside against the garage door until you cried? Was it skating on the rough slough north of our farmhouse? The green gloves that made him tougher like Sue? Was it the 5-gallon pails of balls that he scavenged from the tennis center at the university? Was it the oversized rollerblades he wore while taking shots in the garage or the shed? Was it the concrete floor that our grandfather generously placed in the farm shed? Was it the creativity that kept him playing with a pucker ball until he was too tired, too cold, or hungry to come in? Or was it the fact that he played with legends like Corey, TJ, Cliff, Richard, Mark, Jody in Mannville? Whatever it was, he was determined, stubborn, had the right attitude, and willing to make it happen. Next, I'll call upon Brad. During Kyle's time in Regina, he was approached by a player agent, Brad Devine. Brad flew our family of 5 out to Pittsburgh for the NHL draft the year he was drafted. And that moment would mark the beginning of one of the most important relationships in his life. Brad, Kyle's agent, it was his agent until the end of his career, and remained a good friend and mentor for the rest of his life. Brad?
Hi there. I had the 5 a.m. slot, and I'm getting pretty old now, so I get up quite early, so it became more convenient to get the calls at 5. So anyhow, it's an honor for me to be up here and say a few words on behalf of Kyle and his family. I guess I'll start by talking about how I ended up meeting Kyle. I had quite a few of the Pats I was representing, Tips and Freddie and Mo and Kaner, and anyhow, there was a terrific group there. They were kind of old school before old school was even a term, I think. And Kyle fit right in, obviously. But the way I used to do it, I'm retired now, but the way I used to do it was I'd go meet the parents first before I'd ever meet the kids. And I just thought it was an appropriate way to do things. I had children, and that's the way I'd want it done. So I went to Lloydminster to meet Bill and Diane. We sat down at, I think it was Digger's Cafe or whatever, and we had a really nice lunch, and I explained sort of what I did for players and how I sort of handled their affairs, etc. And anyhow, they explained that they had 2 children that were maybe a little different than Kyle. Kyle was, they were quite educated, and Kyle was just a bit different. It was like they were giving me a warning sign or something. So anyhow, we finished our lunch, and Bill said, "So where do we go from here?" And I said, well, I'll go meet Kyle now that I've met you guys, if it's okay with you guys to go meet Kyle. Bill looked at me and said, well, I don't quite understand. And I said, well, what don't you understand? Well, he says that you've been his agent for a year already. And I went, no, I haven't, but he was buddies with these kids, and it was just a great foundation for a business, wonderful kids. Brendan Morrow, another client, was not a Pat, but when I asked him in the summer, who do you want to train with? And he, in Brendan's usual voice, he said, I wouldn't mind being with those Pats, Calder and those Pats. So then they ended up training in Saskatoon for quite a few years, actually, and Jason Weber was their trainer and stayed with them for years and years and years of training those kids, even when they went on to the NHL and beyond. And yeah, he did a wonderful job for them. They'd come back in the summers, and I got a couple stories I want to tell. I think we could all tell stories about Kyle. We'd be here till Christmas. But I do have a couple stories about Kyle that stood out a little bit in my mind. They were training in Saskatoon, and we went golfing one day. It was Kyle and Freddie and Brendan. And I told them at the time I was trying to be in some kind of shape, and there was about a 45-minute run back for a normal person from the golf course to my house. And I said to Kyle, you guys go ahead, take the truck, and you guys go back, and I'll meet you back at the house. So I start jogging down this quiet little paved road, and all of a sudden my truck drives up beside me, and I'm running, and Kyle's out the window driving but laughing at me, and said, are you going to be okay? And I said, well, I hope so, but anyhow, just drop my truck off at the house and we'll go from there. So anyhow, he said, are you sure you're going to be okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, just keep going. So he slowly pulls away, and I look over to my right, and he's got a humongous chocolate chip cookie with fishing line dragging behind the truck. So I thought, okay, that's a good one. I get home, and I run up to my house, and I see my truck. It's parked on my front lawn with half the back end hanging on the street, the other on the front lawn. There's beer bottles all over the lawn. The doors are both open, and there's 20 hay bales in the back of the truck. Like, this is a matter of an hour. So anyhow, they had left the scene, but Kyle, my neighbors, a number of my neighbors actually phoned me and said, are you okay, or whatever, but anyhow. He was, Kyle, these bring back so many memories, and hearing these stories about his coaches and everything, they're so accurate. He was such a big-hearted, kind person. I always described him to coaches and GMs and everything else. I always used to say, he's mischievous, but he's not malicious. He didn't have a malicious bone in his body, but boy, was he filled with mischief. And I kind of know where he got it from as I got to know Bill. Anyhow, stories, there's many stories. The one story that kind of stood out in my mind was just Kyle and I. We went on a bear hunting trip with bows up in northern Saskatchewan. And we had I think there were about 7 or 8 players there. And it was fun, but it was a little bit nerve-wracking. I had shot a bear about 2 months before that, I think, and I was kind of done, and these guys wanted to go try it, so I said, sure, let's get it organized. So Kyle and I get dropped off at a bear stand, and we go in, and we're sitting there, and there's a bait station, and we're in 2 little tree stands about 10 feet off the ground. We're waiting, and all of a sudden the bears start coming in. We're sitting there, and we're kind of amused by it. The bait station is about 20 yards away, which is probably the range for a bow, the proper range. And these bears keep coming in, and Kyle says, well, should we shoot one of them? And I said, no. They said, they've got to wait for a big one. And we waited, and we sat up there, and we were visiting, and all of a sudden I said to Kyle, I said, uh-oh. And he says, what? And those big eyes. He looks at me and he says, what? And I said, look beside you. There's a bear cub in the tree beside him, literally like 5 feet away from him, less than that. And I says, oh my God. And he said, what? And I said, his mom's coming up the tree. And he goes, yeah, you're really funny. And I said, I am serious. And she gets up to the tree, climbs it, and she's literally, her mouth is that far away from his back end. And he's sitting there, I've never seen him that well behaved in my life. He's sitting there looking at me like this, and he says, what do I do? And I said, I have no idea. And he sat there, and then he goes, takes this arrow, and he starts poking the cub. And I'm going, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do, Kyle. He says, what do I do? And I said, I don't know. And he said, but then she went back down, and the cub fortunately crawled back down the tree. So we're sitting there and sitting there, and all of a sudden there's some commotion, and these bears, we had 11 bears underneath us. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, to say the least. But we were sitting there quietly, and he says, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, we got to get a big one. Anyhow, this humongous bear that we'd heard about from Jimmy Vandermeer and Mike Siklenka, they got chased out of there. But anyhow, this humongous bear comes down this little bowl sort of area, and all of a sudden these other bears are running and gone. They're done. The bear comes walking over to the bait station, looks at Kyle and I said, get ready. And he takes his arrow and he's got it ready. And he was hitting folded up $20 bills from 20 yards with the arrow the day before. He was really good. I like everything he did with his hand-eye coordination. He was amazing. I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna have a shot at this big bear. So the bear walks over and plops himself down right in front of us. And Kyle's going like, well, what do I do? And I said, you're gonna shoot the bear. The bear stands up, gives him a perfect shot. And he's like 10 feet away or 15 feet away. Kyle takes his arrow back like this, and I have this on video. He takes his arrow back like this and takes it too far. And all of a sudden, clunk, 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 the arrow goes down to the base of the tree. I go, what? I said, dude, get it ready again. So he takes another arrow and takes it up. And honestly, to this day, I don't think he wanted to kill the bear. He shoots the bear right in the ass. This bear went berserk. He destroyed the bait station. He's running around with this arrow stuck in his ass. And I'm going, how could you miss him? And he goes, I don't know. Anyhow, he's running around. He says, what do we do? So the bear leaves. Fortunately for us, the bear leaves. We have no guns. We have nothing. Just him and his bow and arrow. And anyhow, he says, what do we do? And I said, well, I don't know. I guess we'll go find him. You shot him. Maybe he died. I said, okay. So I'm walking in front, and he's walking behind with a bow and arrow, and I'm thinking, well, first of all, you can't shoot this thing at bears, obviously, but anyhow, we walk around until finally I just said, Kyle, we got to quit. We have to quit this. He's going to be laying there, and we're going to get hurt. So we walked out, and Kyle didn't get his bear, but he did shoot the biggest bear I've ever seen in northern Saskatchewan, right in the butt. He was, Kyle was so kind. He became a big part of my family. He got my son Joe, we went down to see him when he was in Chicago playing, and he said to Mary Jo, my wife, and I, he said, you guys don't worry about it. I'm going to take Joe and you guys go have an evening out in Chicago. And I just didn't even think about it. I said, yeah, okay, well, that's great. Well, next day we saw pictures of Joe in the Lovables dressing room. We saw him at center court at the Bulls game. We saw him at a fancy restaurant. We saw him in the Hawks dressing room. He took him everywhere. He did not have to do this, but he was so kind and so generous. Joe's here today. Thought so much of Kyle. Kyle, my mom and dad went to see him play in LA, and he came out after the game, and they were kind of standing there. They didn't really know what to do underneath, and they were by themselves. They're quite old. Anyhow, one player came out, and they were standing there, and the people said, well, are you coming out with us or what? And he says, no, we got a team function. We can't go out. Okay, so then Kyle comes out. Mom and dad give him a hug and say, how's it going? He'd been to the farm a number of times, and anyhow, he comes out, and they said, well, it's nice seeing you, and you played well, et cetera, et cetera. And Kyle says, what do you mean? Aren't we going out for dinner? And they said, well, you've got a team function, I think, don't you? And he goes, no, we don't have a team function. Anyhow, they were out in LA till 1 in the morning, and then they drove back to Palm Springs after. But it was just the way he was. And Dad's 95, Mom's 91, and they were just devastated by the news about Kyle. And they wanted to be here today, but I told them, no, it's too long a drive from you from Moose Jaw. So. His hockey stuff, his hockey memories, we all have these hockey memories of him. One of my fondest memories was at the World Junior, which was amazing how he really came to play on that. He wasn't one of the first picks on that team, but he sure showed up like he always did. He always produced. I'll never forget the Finnish goaltender somewhere at the North Pole trying to find his stuff right now. If you guys remember watching that game and how he took that Finnish goaltender and literally undressed him. He was, there are all kinds of hockey memories, but it was always his heart. He never quit, ever. And, you know, he didn't have the biggest body in the world. He was, you know, his nickname was chairman of the boards in Chicago. There's so many hockey memories you can think of, and you guys all have your own special memories. And anyhow, in closing, Madison, Caden, Riker, CJ, Ryland, Lindsay, Bill and Diane, Jill, Ryan, your whole family. I can't imagine the void. Friends like Troy, his coach, Tips, Freddie, so many of you guys, I can't imagine the void in your life now, the hollow spot, not having him here anymore. He's a wonderful person to work with. He was a wonderful friend. Gonna miss him so much. Sorry. And I'm gonna see you on the other side, little brother. So take care till then. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. I'm just going to leave this up, although it's probably going to have to go even higher. Next speaker is Curtis Tippler. They became good friends in Regina. They lived together at their billets. Kyle had lots of really good friends that he made in Regina. Brad talked about a few: Mo, Hudsey, Lanny, Jack, Tips, Freddie, Lyser, Lars, Dewey, Honky. None of those are first names. And as Brad mentioned, they trained together in Saskatoon in the summer, so built some really good bonds. Yeah, Kyle met a lot of people along the way, and like, this is how many years ago? 25 years ago, and still kept in contact with those people. There's people I met last year I don't keep in contact with, so it's something that really still resonates about Kyle. Yeah, Curtis.
Thanks, Jill. Well, first of all, thanks for that, Brad. I'd like to say thanks to Lindsay and Bill and Diane and the whole family for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. I do really feel honored. We'll do our best to get through this. As Jill mentioned, my name's Curtis Tippler. I grew up down the road in little town Edgerton, not too far from here. Played minor hockey against Kyle, and we lived together when we played in Regina in the mid-90s. So I'm just going to share a few of my memories with him. Is it high enough? Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. My first memory of Kyle actually goes way back to Pee Wee hockey. I think I would have been about 12 years old. That year in Edgerton, we didn't have enough players, so we had to combine with Paradise Valley. So when everyone showed up, we had 9 skaters and 1 goalie. So simpler times back then. Needless to say, there wasn't some complaining about ice time. But we had a really strong team that year. I remember we only lost 2 games all year that year, but I can remember one of them was against a little slippery player with white and pink hockey gloves from Mannville, and that was Kyle. And I know you remember that, Bill, because you brought it up to me many times over the years. Funny how you can still remember that far back, right? Now this might surprise a few people, but a couple years later in the fall of '94, Kyle and I were at the Regina Pats rookie camp together, and my mom and Bill got to chatting. I remember the 4 of us went out for breakfast one day and got chatting a bit, and Kyle sat across from me, and I know it's hard to believe, but he didn't say a word the whole breakfast. Do you remember that breakfast, Bill? He just stared at me. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? So back in those days, there was no AAA in Lloydminster, so we had to move away to play at that level of hockey. And I had played in Leduc the previous year and had a good experience, and my mom had passed that on to the Calders. And sure enough, a few weeks later, I was back in Leduc to play AAA and walking down the hall at school, and who do I see? This little greasy kid from Mannville that I had breakfast with a couple of weeks earlier. So I go up to him, same thing, try and talk, see how it's going. Nothing, just one-word answers. So it's pretty funny looking back when I got to know him better for what a little mouthpiece he was, that we couldn't get anything out of him back then. So anytime he did get a little cocky with me, I just asked him if he learned to speak when he was 16, because I never heard a word from him before that. So, but Kyle and I became, actually just to follow that up, that year, Kyle did lead the Bantam AAA League in scoring. So moving from a small town where he probably had the same classmates for 11 years, probably 12 classmates, to a big school, away from family and whatnot, to lead the league in scoring, pretty impressive. So we became better friends in the fall of '95 when we both made the Pats as rookies together. I was 17, Kyle was 16. So I always kind of thought of Kyle as somewhat of a little brother, just because of our previous experience. And that summer, the Pats had been sold to the Parker family, so there was new ownership. We had a new coach, Rich Preston, who was a former NHL player, so it was very exciting for everybody. But things were a little rough for Kyle that first year. He separated his shoulder early in the year, which, is pretty tough. You're playing against a lot older players. Your rookie packing equipment and whatnot, doing extra skating. And the team had also roomed up Kyle that first year with a Russian player who barely spoke any English. So it was a bit of a grind for Kyle, for sure. But I do remember partway through that first year, we were playing in Swift Current. I happened to be on the ice with Kyle and had the puck in our own end, and Kyle cut across the middle. He was skating up the right side of the ice, got into the Swift Current zone, did a little head shake and cut to the middle. Of course, I was so fast, I was right behind him. That's where he took his classic clapper and slipped one past the goalie, and that was his first WHL goal. I'll never forget that. He was so pumped. The next year, Kyle asked if we could move in together, if he could stay at our billets, which I had some pause, but eventually said, yeah, let's do that. And it was probably the most fun year of my life, to be honest. We had a great team, long cast of characters, and Kyle was certainly one of them. The shenanigans were nonstop, as you guys all know. You had to be on your toes all the time. One story that sticks out for me that year, our teammate Lars Pedersen, I'm not sure if Lars made it here today or not. Kyle and Lars, whoever left the rink first would hide the other person's shoes. I mean, it's so stupid, but they would do it every day. And so if we would get home first, Kyle and I would be eating, and of course this was before cell phones and whatnot, and if the phone would ring, I'd answer it, and it'd be Lars from the rink saying, "Dep, put calls on the phone." And there I'd hear that conversation. "I don't know, Lars, I didn't see your shoes. That's weird, they're not there. Did someone else take them?" I heard that conversation probably 30 times that year. It was hilarious. You guys will have a chuckle at this one. I did when I walked in, but sometime during that season, Kyle also came up with the idea that he wanted a puck from every WHL rink that season. And I don't mean a practice puck or a game warm-up puck. He wanted an actual game puck. He didn't tell anybody about his little plan, but he started picking up the puck during stoppages and plays during the game and secretly handing them to Torchy, our equipment trainer at the time. So we're in Seattle and an icing's called. He'd pick up the puck before the ref saw it, and there would be the ref looking for the puck. No one knew what was going on. Next night in Spokane, might be an offside. He loves scrummages in front of the net because no one was paying attention. You could get out the puck anytime. So halfway through that year, I was in his room and I saw all these pucks, and I asked him, like, what are these pucks? And that's when he finally told me what he was up to. And he said, I only got a couple more to go. Sure enough, a week or so later, I saw him grab one in Brandon, and I had to laugh because that's what he did with all those pucks right there on that board. So I was going to say, I bet that was still in Mannville. So it was your Christmas present, Bill? Yeah. Well, he put a lot of effort into it, trust me. So what a wonderful year, though. Kyle scored 25 goals as a 17-year-old and was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks, as we know. What an accomplishment. The following year we're in Regina, and we're really excited. We had a great team. Shortly after training camp, I got called into the coach's office and was told that I've been traded to Prince George, and certainly was devastated. Kyle and I drove to the rink that day, so driving home was tough. We both were in tears. Couldn't believe we weren't going to live together anymore. So something happens at that age when you move away to play hockey. Your teammates become more than teammates. You got to take care of each other. You don't have family around. Yeah, you have billets and whatnot, but you really learn to take care of each other. You do a lot. You go through ups and downs together. So you build bonds that certainly last. So, that was 30 years ago, and I think there's 7 or 8 of us from that team here today, and lots others have reached out. So, but as we know, life goes on. You pick your head up and on to the next battle. As everyone's mentioned, Kyle made the World Junior Hockey team. That was very exciting. And of course, one more story I want to quickly mention, just everyone talking about Kyle's kindness, and I want to mention this too. I had signed a contract with Tampa Bay and moved to Saskatoon and to work out with Freddie and Kaner and Kyle. And as soon as I got there, Kyle greeted me with a big hug and a congratulations. He said something that I'll keep to myself, but it was nothing but pride and joy for his friend. So I'll never forget that. Of course, right after that, he said, "Tip signed, he's buying all summer, boys." So, of course, the following year, Kyle signed his first contract of his own, another amazing high. And later that season, he got to play in his first NHL game and score his first NHL goal. Back in those days, of course, no cell phones. It was hard to stay in touch with where your teammates were and whatnot. And I happened to be playing in Rockford in the minor leagues, which is just outside Chicago. I remember one night on the bus, the Blackhawks highlights came on, and there it was. I saw Kyle, the highlight of Kyle scoring his first NHL goal. And I couldn't have been more proud because our teams in Regina had some really talented players that we just knew were going to go play in the NHL, but there was a cast of us that we didn't quite know which way it would go. And to see Kyle score that goal was kind of like a win for all of us, maybes, so couldn't have been more proud of him. And of course, things just went higher from there. So Obviously at World Championships and led the Blackhawks in scoring one year. Of course, a lot of my memories of Kyle are tied together through hockey, but he would tell you what he was most proud of was his kids. He was so pumped to be a dad. I remember talking to him on the phone not long after Caden was born, and I said, how was things going? And he just said, oh man, it's the best. I want more kids. He always told me how he wanted lots of kids, and then although I wasn't around much to get to know all of you kids as I would have liked to, I can tell you this, every time I did talk to him over the years and asked about all of you, he gave me the same response. Tips, they're effing awesome. He's a very proud dad. There's a couple other things that stood out to me about Kyle and his kindness over the years when I lived with him. You know, one night we were in Regina, probably up to no good. It was one of those minus 35-degree nights with the wind blowing. We're heading home in the middle of the night, and we're stopped at a red light, and we see this dog kind of in the middle of the street, not knowing which way to go. Could tell it was in trouble. Kyle loaded that dog up in our truck and brought it home to our billet Pat's house. Brought it inside, fed it out of the fridge, and took care of that dog all the rest of the night, and then returned it to its rightful owner the next day. Those are things he did without people watching or just out of the kindness of his heart. The other thing that stood out to me was how kind he was to Alicia's young brothers back then. We were 17 or 18, and all the time he would pick me up to do something, and her brothers were probably 6, 7, or 8 in that age. He'd always have one of them with us. He'd always let them sit on the lap and turn the steering wheel while we drove through town. Probably not the safest thing, but I remember being 18 years old thinking, wow, like he's really, really good to those kids. Which probably led to why I ended up in coaching later on down the road, right? So, always there for me, anytime I needed anything. I remember I was moving to Saskatoon in 05 to start a new job. I asked him if I could crash at his place for a few days or a couple weeks. He's absolutely no problem. Well, that was great, other than I don't think he told Alicia that at the time. So when I pulled the big U-Haul van in, there was a bit of an incident there. But when I think of Kyle now and all he accomplished in his 47 years, it reminds me never underestimate the fight in the dog. You know, I used to bug him that he has the most career NHL games played for somebody who couldn't raise the puck over the net. But he was one of those guys that always found a way to get it done one way or another. And we've heard lots of people talk, but one of his greatest attributes was his determination. It was really unbelievable. So I know I speak for our little group of friends that you'll be definitely missed, Kyle. Though you're gone way too soon. Makes me think of a chat I had with Brad a couple years ago. And we're talking about all the shenanigans we got up to back in those days. And Brad said the only thing in life worth counting is how many laughs you had. Well, if that's the case, then Kyle had a full life. So thank you.
Well said, Curtis. I can pass along some other close bond stories from his AHL career. So guys that had been drafted and played on the farm team. One, Jeff Paul, who kept in touch close with Kyle over the years, he passed on how did this pound-for-pound weakling that couldn't shoot, Tippler explains as well, how could he make it? And his answer was God. He just tapped him on the shoulder. So I believe that too. Next, I will be inviting Kyle's daughter, Madison, up to speak. She became very tough growing up with 4 brothers and is a rose between thorns. She's a very special person and speaks eloquently, unlike her uncle. She can put words into how we all feel, and she can light up a room and has Kyle's storytelling ability. And we'll have you in stitches. Kyle, love you so much. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Madison Calder. I'm Kyle's only daughter, something I'm proud to say growing up with a sea of boys amongst me. On behalf of our family, I want to start by saying thank you for the endless amount of love and support and for being here with us today. It has brought all of us so much comfort during such a devastating time, and we appreciate it more than you all know. My dad had a way of pulling people together, and looking out at all of you right now, I can see that's exactly what's still happening. He would be so moved to see all of you in this room. My dad was one of the most loving human beings to ever walk this earth. The biggest teddy bear you could ever come across. Arms always open, heart always on his sleeve, never once afraid to let you know exactly how much he loved you. He loved his friends fiercely, and he showed up for them in ways people don't forget. A phone call at the right moment, showing up when it mattered, never keeping score. So many of you in this room have your own stories of that, I'm sure. But what was even more remarkable, what I had the privilege of witnessing every single day of my life, was the way he showed up for his family. Family over everything. That wasn't just something he said. That was the whole way he lived and breathed and loved. He didn't just say those words. He built his entire life around them, and he made sure every single one of us felt it every single day. He was our #1 supporter, always, without exception. He never just quietly showed up to our graduations. He showed up with an air horn, blasting it as loud as it would go the second our names were called, so that there was no question in anyone's mind whose kid was walking across that stage. Loud, over the top, completely unnecessarily, and completely perfectly him. He wanted the whole room to know how proud he was. And he was never once embarrassed to make sure of it. And he wasn't just loud on the big days. When I was in elementary school, he'd pick me up after school to get me and start honking the car horn at me while I stood there with my friends. And I would try so hard to look the other way and pretend I had no idea who that man was. I was mortified. I would have paid anything at that moment for him to just stop. Now I'd give anything in the world to hear that horn one more time. I'd stand right there and let him embarrass me all over again 1,000 times over. If I could just have him back. Every single morning, he drove Caden, Riker, and me all the way from Orange County to school. We had to be up at 6 a.m., which at the time felt like the cruelest thing a father could ask of his children. But without fail, every morning, he stopped at Amigos Tacos first. Breakfast burritos, and my favorite, a pink donut with sprinkles from 7-Eleven. He never once skipped it. Not once. He took something that should have been miserable and turned it into something we actually looked forward to day after day, year after year, because that's who he was. He didn't just get us to school. He made sure that getting there felt like love. I was his only daughter. His little girl. And he made absolutely sure I knew it every day of my life. He treated me like an absolute princess, never once making me question whether I had everything I needed, because he made sure of it before I even had to ask. He even tried to braid my hair for dance class when I was younger. He had no idea what he was doing. His hands were far too big and far too clumsy for something so delicate. And I screamed and cried through the entire thing, but he tried anyway. He kept trying. That was him. He would attempt anything for us, no matter how out of his depth he was, because giving up on us was never something he knew how to do. Some of my absolute favorite memories are our road trips. All of us piling into one car and driving clear across the country, no matter how far, no matter how long it took. 5 kids in one car is chaos, plain and simple. Someone always had to use the bathroom the second we got on the freeway, right, Caden? Someone was hungry, someone was fighting over the screen, and someone probably by the name of Riker was complaining that we'd been driving for too long. It was loud, it was messy, and looking back, I honestly don't know how he did it. But through every single mile of it, my dad had a smile on his face. Because being together, all 7 of us crammed into that car, driving him absolutely crazy, that was exactly where he wanted to be. He never once complained. He just kept driving, kept smiling, because to him, that chaos was happiness. In 2023, I visited Chicago, and without thinking much of it at the time, wrote 4 words on Caden's whiteboard. Loving, caring, happy, family. My dad saw it, and he made sure no one ever erased it. Not once. Rai started writing new things around it instead, so my 4 words just kept sitting there in the middle of everything untouched. To this very day, right now, while we sit here, those words are still up on that board. My dad protected them like they meant something sacred because to him they did. And I have to believe that wherever he is right now, he's holding his one loving, caring, happy family closer than he ever has. Closer than any of us can even imagine. Life is not fair. This isn't right, and it will never be right. Not for as long as I live. He deserves to watch Kaden and I graduate from college and cheer louder than anyone in that stadium. He deserved to see Rylan go off to Shattuck and kick butt exactly the way he knew he would. He deserved to watch CJ play at Lake Forest. He deserved to watch Riker step up to the plate in baseball again and again for years to come. He deserved to travel the whole country with Lindsay in our favorite RV with nowhere to be and nothing to do but be together. He deserved decades, not years. He deserved to grow old, to be the grandfather who embarrassed his grandkids the way he embarrassed us. Instead, I was robbed. We were all robbed of a father, a husband, a friend who had so much love to give. It has been 1 month since he took his last breath. It was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever had to witness in my entire life, and I don't think that image will ever fully leave me. This past month has been a complete blur. Some days there's nothing but pain and anger, and I find myself asking what the point of any of it is anymore. Other days I manage to get out of bed and go do something I love, because I know that's exactly what he would want from me. He would want me to be strong, the way he was always strong for us. But the truth is, I don't always feel strong. You have been the first thing I think about when I wake up, and the last thing I think about before I go to bed. Sometimes I don't want to open my eyes in the morning because waking up means having to remember all over again that you're gone. And at night I don't want to close them because I know I'll have to wake up and face that reality again. I've been rewatching videos from when I was little, and I keep noticing the same thing. Whenever I was scared, whenever something hurt, whenever I didn't know what to do, all I wanted was to be in your arms. I wanted my dad. I wanted you to pick me up, wrap your arms around me and make everything feel okay. And now, when things feel scary, I don't have you here to run to. I find myself crying because more than anything in the world, I just want to be wrapped up in your arms again. I want to feel safe with you. I want to hear your voice. I want one more hug, one more car ride, one more embarrassing honk, one more ordinary day where I didn't know it was going to be the last. I still don't fully believe this is real. I still expect my phone to ring and it to be him. I find myself opening the photo album on my phone titled Dad over and over because that's what we have left now. Memories frozen on a screen. He was too young, far too young. He should have had so many more years ahead of him, and instead we are standing here. But I know my dad, and I know he would not want us sitting in the sadness forever, drowning in it, letting it swallow the joy he spent his whole life building for us. What he would want, more than anything, is for us to learn from him and from each other. To take the time to actually enjoy the people sitting around us, our family, our friends, while we still have them, instead of waiting until moments like this one to remember how much they mean. So that is what I'm going to try to do, even on the hardest days. And I hope, on behalf of my dad, that all of you will do the same. Call the people you love. Show up loud for them, embarrassingly loud if you have to. Stop at the taco shop. Write something on someone's whiteboard and mean it. That was his whole life's lesson, and I refuse to let it end with him. Dad, we love you. We will always love you. Family over everything, always and forever. One big happy family, just like you always wanted. Thank you.
That can't have been easy, Madison, but thank you for sharing that with everyone. And next and our last speaker will be Tim. Kyle and Tim met while Kyle was coaching in Los Angeles. They became fast friends, and Tim had many wild adventures with Kyle. He'll speak to a few of them, but if you get a chance to talk to Tim at some point, he'll share some more. He and his wife, Joanne, spent many hours with us in the hospital with Lindsay. Really good support.
Kyle called me Reg from Slapstick. I want to start out by thanking everybody for coming here and honoring the life of Kyle Calder, a credible man, a loyal friend, a great dad, a great son, obviously touched a lot of lives. I met Kyle after he retired. Like many, he was coaching my son. And then we quickly became friends. Over 15 years, he became more than that to me. He became my Canadian brother. You know that people say friends are the family that you choose. Well, that's exactly who Kyle was to me. If there was an adventure to have, Kyle was always packing the truck before you can even finish asking. A road trip, he was in. Weekend getaway, he was in. One of those last minute ideas that probably wasn't the smartest decision, he was absolutely in. Kyle lived his life all gas, no brakes. I was lucky to explore Ireland, Germany, Mexico, Vegas, and many other places. Kyle had a unique ability to turn a foreign country into his personal playground. We even did a demolition derby together at the Orange County Fair. The year before, Kyle would watch me having fun battling in the arena, and that's all it took. Naturally, he was in. No hesitation, no fear, probably not enough preparation, but that never stopped him. He climbed in the car like he'd been doing it his whole life. Kyle took second place in his first demolition derby against a stacked field. That was Kyle. He showed up completely, competed every single time. Now, I know we all have stories about him, some hilarious, some unforgettable, and some that probably should wait till tonight to tell. One story that I would like to share is our ocean incident. Kyle and Lindsay rented a boat for my birthday, and me, my wife, Lindsay, and Kyle were flying across the ocean at 45 miles an hour. It was at this time that Kyle looked at me with a grin. He thought this was the perfect time to question my manhood. He dared me to jump in. I didn't think for a second. I jumped. The captain of the boat politely stopped the boat and explained why swimming was allowed. The boat had to be at a stop first. Now this is where it gets funny. Kyle was not a huge fan of sea creatures. We knew it, Kyle knew it, and the ocean knew it. And yet, before the captain could even finish his safety announcement to me, Kyle was in the water, because that was Kyle. He could never dare another man to do something and not do it himself. His pride acted faster than his fear did. He was in. Now, when we were both in the water having the time of our lives, until the sea lion came. Now, I won't go into full detail because this isn't a roast, but watching Kyle's attempt to exit the water and get back in the boat is by far one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Another adventure that we had was bear hunting. In order to get a bear, I was put up in a tree stand up a mountain trail alone from 3 p.m. until way after dark. Kyle and the guide came to get me, and when they pulled up with the mule, Kyle jumped out of the mule like a Christmas elf. Did you get one? I played coy and climbed down the ladder, and the guide grabbed my rifle and noticed there was one round missing. And the guide asked me, how come there's one round missing? And before I can answer, Kyle yelled, "Oh my God, you missed." I grinned at him and I said, "No, the bear is laying over in the bushes," and we both jumped up and celebrated. Kyle wasn't just in for the good times, he was in there for the rough ones too. About 10 years ago, Kyle, Lindsay, and my wife were out to dinner. It came up in conversation that I was going to get a vasectomy. I expected some well-targeted chirps from Kyle, but what I didn't expect, for him to pause, think for a second, and he said, "I'm in." Not only did he say he was in, he scheduled a procedure that night at dinner with one of his doctor friends. And about a month later, the night before the procedure, he called me up and said, "Do you want to go first or do you want to go second? There's 2 slots." And I said, "I'd like to go first." He said, "Okay, be there at 7 o'clock. So I showed up at 6:30, pulled in the parking lot. And that's when I started getting the texts from Kyle, who was already in surgery. Text is like, "Don't do it." It hurts so bad. Just to freak me out. Now, I don't know exactly what this says about Kyle, but I think it says everything. When his friend was facing something uncomfortable, Kyle showed up. Completely, hilariously, and without hesitation, he was in. He would follow you into the ocean, into a demolition derby, into a bear hunt, into a foreign country, even into a medical procedure. Now, I can't talk about Kyle without talking about how he loved pranks. Pranks at airports, parking lots, restaurants, ice rinks. No stranger off limits. Nobody could be 100% safe around Kyle because you never knew what he was going to do. But most importantly, Kyle had a huge heart. Like so many other kids, he treated my son like his own, not just on the ice, but off it too. He showed up for him in ways that people simply don't. He didn't have to, he chose to, every single time. About 8 years ago, when my family was going through a personal crisis, Kyle dropped everything for several days and nights and didn't sleep until he knew my family was going to be okay. Now, that is not a small thing. That is the kind of thing that people try to be their whole entire life. The hardest thing about losing somebody like Kyle is knowing that there won't be any new adventures with him. No random 3 o'clock phone calls. "Are you in?" No more laughter, making my worst days better. But one thing I wanted to make sure is that everybody remembers what Kyle taught us. Life is meant to be lived. Say yes to that trip. Make time for your friends. Laugh until your stomach hurts. Be there for other people's children. Treat people like family. Create memories instead of waiting for that perfect time, because tomorrow is never promised. And although my heart is broken, I am incredibly grateful. Grateful for every mile we traveled, every ridiculous adventure, every laugh, every memory. Most of all, I'm grateful I got to call him my Canadian brother. All gas, no brakes. He meant it. He lived it. He was in. Give heaven a little hell, brother.
Thanks, Rich. Next, we will start a slideshow that was put together by my sister. It has as much detail and effort put into it as Kyle put into his playing career, so it's really good. Thank you for being here.
Trees younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place home, country roads. All my memories gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, I hear her voice in the morning hour. She calls me
day and the next day gone. Sometimes you bend, sometimes you stand, sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside the darkened door where blues won't haunt you anymore. With a brave heart free and lover's soul, come ride with me to the distant shore. We won't hesitate, break down the garden gate. There's not much time left today. Life is a highway, I wanna ride it all night long. If you're going my way, I wanna drive it all night long. Through all these cities and all these towns, it's in my blood and it's all around. I loved you now like I loved you then. This is the road and these are the hills. From Mozambique to those Memphis nights, the Khyber Pass to Vancouver's lights. Knock me down and back up again. You're in my blood, I'm not a lonely man. There's no load I can't hold. The road's so rough, this I know. I'll be there when the light comes in. Just tell them we're survivors. Life is a highway, I wanna ride it all night long. If you're going my way, I wanna drive it all night long. Life is a highway, I wanna ride it all night long. Give me, yeah. You're going my way, I wanna drive it all night long. There was a distance between you and I, a misunderstanding once, but now we're looking in the eye. There ain't no load that I can't hold. Road so rough, this I know. I'll be there when the light comes in. Just tell them we're survivors. Life is a highway, I wanna ride it all night long. If you're going my way, I wanna drive it all night long. Gimme, 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 yeah. Life is a highway, I wanna ride it all night long. If you're going my way, I wanna drive it all night long. Gimme, 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 yeah. Life is a highway, I wanna ride it all night long. If you're going my way, I wanna drive it all night long.
Loving can hurt. Loving can hurt sometimes, but it's the only thing that I know. When it gets hard, you know it can get hard sometimes. It is the only thing that makes us feel alive. We keep this love in a photograph. We made these memories for ourselves. We're where our eyes are never closing, our hearts are never broken, and time's forever frozen still. So you can keep me inside the pocket of your ripped jeans, holding me closer till our eyes meet. You won't ever be alone. Wait for me to come home. Loving can heal, loving can mend your soul, and it's the only thing that I know. I swear it will get easier. Remember that with every piece of you. And it's the only thing we take with us when we die. We keep this love in its photograph. We made these memories for ourselves, where our eyes are never closing, our hearts were never broken, time's forever frozen still. So you can keep me inside the pocket of your ripped jeans, holding me closer till our eyes meet. You won't ever be alone. And if you hurt me, that's okay, baby. Only words bleed inside these pages. You just hold me. I won't ever let you go. Wait for me to come home. Wait for me to come home. Wait for me to come home. Wait for me to come home.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right, and how could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Holding you, I held everything. For a moment, wasn't I the king? But if I'd only known how the king would fall, hey, who's to say? You know I might have changed it all. And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
Lazy yellow moon coming up tonight, shining through the trees. Crickets are singing and lightning bugs are floating on the breeze. Baby, get ready. Across the field where the creek turns back by the old stump road, I'm gonna take you to a special place that nobody knows.